On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is it to me and to you? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the person in charge of the banquet." So they took it. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that person called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine when after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. May the Lord bless your understanding of this word.
We're gonna bump into people, aren't we? I mean, if we're not paying attention, we might stumble or fall or something, or oh my gosh, and our insides just spill out all over us, don't they? I mean, you might have a day, maybe 5 in the last year that you could count on one hand, when you didn't have to bump into somebody. And maybe recently you bumped up against someone and what was inside you spilled out all over everybody, and it was very unpleasant. Maybe it was a resentment that you had successfully kept buried for a while until you couldn't anymore. Maybe it was one of those wounded places that got poked by something someone said, and you read it in a way that hurt you very deeply. And you may be wondering if that person even loves you, or are you even worthy of love? Or maybe you got really bad news and it frightened you to your core. And you started thinking the worst. And then your imagination took the very deep dive all the way down to the most devastating outcome. How could I even make that list if I hadn't experienced every single one of those scenarios, right? We might say, I just wasn't myself when I did that. Or we might rationalize that the stress made us think and say things that we just wouldn't normally say that. We might even blame the people that we bumped up against and believe that, had they done it differently or said something else or, considered my feelings, then maybe they wouldn't have made me feel that way. Friends, it's my premise that the stuff that's inside us when we are most vulnerable and what it spills out then is really the most accurate assessment of what we contain within. When life is moving along at its usual, predictable, comfortable pace, we've learned skills to guard our hearts, haven't we? We keep our fears at bay and we manage our behavior according to cultural expectations. We've learned. that if we can't say anything nice, then we shouldn't say anything at all. Until the words just start spilling out because our filters collapsed. We've practiced biting our tongues until we bite somebody's head off. We may be told to walk in somebody else's shoes to practice empathy until our own shoes just get so uncomfortable we can't take another step. And how about that biblically rooted guidepost, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, until we would rather do unto them as they have done unto us. Our biblical text today is a really good example of one of those stressful moments. This interesting choice of Jesus to begin his public ministry by performing a miracle and transforming water into wine. Before we dig too deeply into the characters or this story, I want to pause for a minute and just worship Jesus. How beautiful is this miracle? To bring from nothing into being what wasn't. The glory of God fully revealed, and many believe. So today, will you believe that Jesus can transform you? Can Jesus change your watery resolve into passion that empowers a useful and meaningful life, healed and healing? How does Jesus do this? Change us from the inside out? Well, if we look at this story, we get a hint. So first of all, we're at a wedding feast. Notoriously stressful events. Weddings usually cause the messiness that's all of inside us to spill out. But we add a complication to this one. They have run out of wine. It's a huge social faux pas. If you have watched the TV series The Chosen, which will be aired tonight here at 6 o'clock for those who want to see it, this episode, the writers took some literary privilege and it created some interesting characters that the Bible doesn't include. For example, they suggest that Mary is best friends with the groom's mother, who is hosting the feast. And everyone who is in the know about the wine situation is extremely stressed out, just staring at the empty wine jugs, rubbing their heads. What are we going to do? You can't create wine in 15 minutes. The groom's family is going to have to admit their poverty. Their social embarrassment will last for the entire generation, if not more. They are disgraced. But Mary, she really doesn't have any skin in the game here. She, of course, cares about her best friend, but she has nothing to lose. But she has privilege. She has the privilege of proximity to Jesus. She has seen Jesus grow up in love and grace. She is aware that Jesus can stand in the gap and actually make a difference. Did she expect him to change water into wine? Who can say what she was expecting? But she does believe that Jesus can fix the problem. And so she takes the concern to him. And Jesus does. Jesus fixes the problem, changes water intended for ritual purification into not just wine, the finest wine. Do you know what it takes to make the finest wine? It takes grapes that have received exactly the right amount of water, rainwater, the exact right amount of sunshine, even just a twinge of doubt to raise sweetness for that very particular hybrid grape. It is wine that comes from a very well-maintained, pruned, and nurtured vine. And the grapes, they have to be harvested by hand to assure that the highest quality of grapes are selected at exactly the right time in their maturation process. Also, the finest wine has to be produced through fermentation and aging with a proven and consistent process that has been honed and perfected over years, maybe even generations of trial and error. Jesus turns the water into that kind of wine. My dear friends, we are those grapes. We are being nurtured into the finest wine. You are being nurtured on a well-maintained vine. You are being pruned for maximum growth, health, and output. You are being picked at a perfectly imperfect moment of your maturation process. Because we don't start off that way, do we? No, we don't. When our emotions, our stress, our fears, our anxieties, our angers are directing our lives, our watery insides are spilling all out with immature reactivity. But we have the opportunity to see ourselves in those moments. Tripping over our triggers may seem like a bad thing because they sure are painful. But we don't know our triggers till we trip over them, do we? And that's when we can take them to Jesus. We may want to say, well, you know what? That's just the way I am. Or, gosh, I am just like my father. Or we may say, you know, I just have anger issues. And then what are we doing? But we're surrendering. We're surrendering to our shame. We're giving up on ourselves and our own self-judgment. We're believing that our well-practiced behaviors of our past trauma or mistakes are hardwired into us. But that's not the gospel. That is not the ancient story of God from the very beginning, when God chose mercy over punishment. God never, ever said that we are destined to be small, to be held captive in our reactivity, or to be confined by shame or regret. God, in the life and ministry of Jesus, is promising a life that is abundant and free, accomplished by a radical change of our internal nature from water into the finest wine. And when we believe that Jesus has the power to change us right now, today, in this moment, we don't have to be the person that we were yesterday. We always have that choice. We don't necessarily have a choice about how our situations trigger our feelings, but we have a choice about how we respond to our feelings. So, when we're not saying anything nice, words are just spilling out because our filters collapsed, that's the time when we do turn to Jesus and we ask Jesus to change our anger into compassion. And when the practice of biting our tongues has resulted in biting off heads, we can ask Jesus for the humility to really apologize and to make amends for the harm that we have done. And when we're walking in somebody else's shoes that just got really pinchy, we can ask Jesus to join us in a moment of rest. And then we can share that refreshment with someone who is shoeless. And here's where the beautiful miracle happens. We have drawn close to Jesus, the one who really can make a difference in our hearts and who has promised to do that good work on our messy insides. Jesus, just like the servants and the disciples who were witnessing the miracle, were privileged to see the glory of God revealed before them because they were standing right next to him. We will experience that privilege. We will be witnesses to the radical, life-changing power of Jesus. They came to believe. So will we. So that the next time we're triggered to do unto others as they may have done unto us, we will instead find that they've done us a favor. Because we get to practice the radical love of Jesus to undo the harm. Instead of our messiness spilling out, our beautifully rich, mature, and well-seasoned wine will bring healing, hope, life, and joy to every encounter. So we come again to this table to feast with Jesus. Maybe you feel that your energy has run dry and you can't imagine how you will be restored to vitality. Maybe the conviction of a new year has already dried up. And you can't envision how you will find courage to keep trying. In our fatigue, in our weakness, my friends, that's the place where the miracle actually happens. That's where Jesus does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Jesus changes us, no effort required on our part. So come to this table. Come to be transformed. Come to this table to be set free. Come to this table to see the glory of God revealed and believe again. Amen.